Hey, welcome to Anything Relevant. And I was going through some comments and decided to do another video. And I got someone commenting to me about religion and asked what changed for me. Because in the conversation, I I shared that I used to be, and I am no longer. And I just got a rambling answer. I hope it's not too provoking or insulting to anyone else. It's just my life experience. You know, my my collected assessment, and I think it's going to be unsatisfactory for the people that believe. I mean, well, I hope not. I hope it's satisfactory. But why did I lose my faith? Well, why don't I give a background? I'm part First Nations, and I was raised in, a logging town, like in small industry town, and fishing and logging and mechanic work aplenty. And being First Nations in this town was a challenge. I received a lot of different levels of treatment for my heritage. And my family was not religious from the get go. We got religious a little later on. I was around 9, 10 years old. So I'd lived my life, as a child, doing as I was told until you start thinking for yourself around 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. And then all of a sudden, now you're being subjugated to another form of understanding. And I gotta admit, it was traumatizing learning about Christianity as a kid. I was terrified of, like, every child is afraid of the dark, like young child, 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, and you eventually got to conquer that fear. Well, by the time I'm conquering the fear of darkness, now I'm starting to learn about God and the devil and demons and hell and sin and evil, and then I became afraid of the dark all over again. Much older than a kid, young kid, much older than that, getting into my pre-teens and still afraid of the dark. Afraid of the dark, that fear, that carried for a long time. I think to a degree, all the way to 19. And then I stopped trusting myself because of this new dimension of reality that Christianity is trying to convey, that there's a heaven, there's a hell, there's these spiritual entities at work. It's another plane of existence overlaid on top of our own, and they interact with us. Some try to save, some try to corrupt. That was frightening. Like a war going on that we can't even see. And it's playing out in the actions and inactions of the people around us. As you can tell, I'm a little bit of an overthinker. So telling a young kid that overthinks for survival, he's going to take that topic and run with it. And that's what I did. So at the beginning, identifying as being First Nations and being reminded of that in that town in the cruelest of ways, then you couple that with religion. The best way I can describe Christianity is like a creepy uncle in law that puts his arm over you, married in. But you have to play ball because it's part of family. That's how I view Christianity from a native perspective. I know that it's not complimentary and it's not meant to be, and I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm just trying to convey that when it's not your own, but it's thrust upon you, whether you like it or not, and you got to abandon your own for the modern movement of progress. You got to adopt this new religion that came from an old world with a lot of baggage, and it exhibited that baggage from 1630 till now. So that element on a historical level is one piece of the structure that caused my abandoning religion, an organized religion, on a historical level, but not the only piece. Seeing the level of suffering in this world and hearing that God has a plan, seeing what's allowed, what's tolerated, what you would hear in a quote, evil succeeds when good people do nothing. Well, there's too many good people doing nothing in this world. That's for sure. But we created a culture, or civilization rather, where taking action is forbidden. You're not authorized. You get a call, and they might not have jurisdiction or probable cause. But then you don't want a fast moving law, do you? You could be in the executioner chair before people realize you're innocent. So with religion, with all that baggage and all that added that they did from 1630 till now, like we must understand that it was Jean Chrétien that closed down those schools. And he was prime minister in the late 90s and early 2000s. And he was a liberal, like a centrist liberal, I believe. And with that being said, since the beginning of Canada till now, there's been a lot of liberal prime ministers before Jean Chrétien, more than not. Or over 50% have been liberal. And they all allowed this. All of them. All the way up until Jean Chrétien. And then all the conservatives that won in that time, less than half. Well, they're just as guilty. They allowed this religion to run rampant across the country and a type of genocide, a cultural genocide, a societal genocide. Like the horrors, like I'm not going to get into the detail. Keep you up at night. So that's another element. You can call that spite in my part. You can call that holding a grudge. I won't agree, but I won't disagree either. Tomato, tomato. So that's an element. The injustice in inaction is another reason why. And there's also what's tolerated in that book. I don't agree with everything in that book. But it's a hardline book. All or nothing. Can't pick and choose. That made it easy for me. Then no. I know I'm jumping around here. So let me go back to a little bit of my journey. So instead of viewing it as this creepy uncle that is unwelcome yet draping itself over my life, I went from one church to another, and in that new church, I eventually stopped falling asleep in church, and I eventually started to really feel impacted by it. The celebration of it. I started feeling moved. And that church was pretty interactive on some Sundays. Decided to skip the sermon and just be in the moment in the faith. And I will admit, I got involved in that. People would speak in tongues. I felt compelled to talk about people in a very positive light. And then the more I did it, the more I lent myself into not resisting this by surrendering to it. I felt like I was free falling into nothingness. And in the mid sentence of yet another person I was speaking about, I felt very vain. I felt very self indulgent, hogging the spotlight, enjoying the attention. I felt very empty about what I was saying, even though I believed what I was saying. I could back it up with experience because these were all compliments of people that I respected. But I knew I wasn't being a vessel. I didn't feel it. I felt emptiness in my words, not the glow of a creator. So that's another element. I felt like a fraud. I never spoke up again, and I ended up walking away shortly thereafter. So that's another element. So when you put the history and you put the feeling of emptiness, like a part of that emptiness is me observing people's behavior. And I talk a lot. I'm like, come on, I got a podcast. That's all I'm doing is talking. Or a YouTube channel. I'm a talker. But the thing is, I do an incredible amount of observation before I start talking about something. Why? Because it's very easy to deconstruct someone's opinion. It's very easy to pull apart an ideology or whatever shell that you're deciding to drape over yourself. All of them can be traversed and bypassed in one manner or another. So unless you really know what you're talking about, it's just skin deep. So I observe and observe and observe, and to the point where I feel I've observed to the point of redundancy. So I observed in both of those churches, and I found a lot of hypocrisy. But that's, I'm not patting myself on the back. Humans are fallible. Everyone's a hypocrite. I'm just still discovering ways how I am. And some of them I can work on. Other ones I don't know what to do about, and I'm just trying to reduce my hypocrisy. Everyone's fallible, so no hard feelings on that. But an aspect of Christianity I was never comfortable with. I was raised to if you know it's wrong, don't do it. Just don't do it, even if it's something you want to do. And given the discipline to resist. So when the commandments were pointed out, I viewed breaking those commandments like staining my soul. I was terrified to do it. It caused a tremendous amount of hesitation in a lot of my actions that should not have had any hesitation in at all. But I would see other people just, through their ego, through their emotions, just burn right past commandment after commandment. And some of them doing it with righteousness in their eyes and in their voice, their words. So, that really smothered that observation of hypocrisy. It wasn't just hypocrisy. There was me realizing that every single Christian in that church had a different view of how to be a Christian. And that's par for the course for humans. But seeing everyone pretend or do their best, another way to say, was very uncomfortable for me. because I started to see that people had no problem repeating a certain type of behavior because they knew they can just say, "Forgive me. I'm sorry. Forgive me." And I feel like that principle on the surface sounds really good because you're showing accountability. You're owning up to it. You're fessing up to it. Sounds like a virtue, and it is. But there's no real repercussion for repetition because you can always just ask infinitely. You know, the argument of a mass murderer on death row asking for forgiveness and having the love and joy of God enter the heart before the lever is switched. And then, you find them in heaven down the road when you go. That's unsettling that it's that easy. I didn't like that. It was always hard for me to own up to things, but I would. It was very difficult. A lot of fear silencing me from doing it. But when I did confess, all that fear in the experience, man, did it imprint me to not want to do that twice. And religion has that, if you sin, you let the devil in. I don't like that. I felt like there was a moral extortion there. There was an extortion element to it. I didn't like that. And for the infinite forgiveness made me feel like that is very enabling. So there's these principles or these practices within Christianity that disturb me, but they're viewed as virtues. And I later learned, unrelated to this, what I learned, about law. If you're going to write up a new law, if you really want it to be effective and carry out what it's meant to carry out, you have to test it. So this law that hasn't been passed, that you wrote up, now you start scenarioizing. If I was a tyrant, if I was a despotic warlord, what could I do with this law? How can this law serve me? And if you kick and punch and yank this new law, this new bill around, and you can't find a way to extort it or manipulate it, use it, then it's a pretty good bill. It's a pretty good law. And I feel the same way with religion. So these elements, this infinite I'm sorries, for some, they'll learn and not repeat. For others, it's an infinite amount of lives. And you can't tell me I'm wrong in that because people are a spectrum. There's good people and bad people. There's the whole spectrum in between. And they exist in every body of people. There's bad Christians. There's good Christians. So with those bad Christians, what does that aspect of that religion enable? It enables them to continue to be bad. As long as they put in effort to not repeat. But if they do repeat, just ask for forgiveness. Pray to God. He'll sweep it under the carpet. So I don't like that. It sounds like a participation ribbons. It's not going to build anything. You participated. You're given a ribbon for the amount of effort and talent you have. That's the whole point of a ribbon. And I wouldn't give religion a ribbon. It enables the bad within it to run amok. They have moral Teflon armor. And I don't like that. And then the demanded behavior for joining this new community. There's demands, and the repercussions are an eternal damnation. That's extortion. That's the bribery of your soul. Sacrifice a part of your identity to save an eternity that cannot be proven. Cannot be proven. When I hear philosophers say, "What was existence before your birth?" and the person being asked has no answer, he goes, "Well, that's the same thing when you die. So, what are you actually fearing? You have an eternity of nothingness on one side of you, and in the middle, you have this less than 100 years or around 100 years existence, and then you have an eternity of nothingness on the other side. You weren't in pain and suffered in that eternity before, and you won't in the eternity after. But with religion, there's an extortion there. There's a threat. If you don't do as you're told, you will suffer an eternity. And if I pick on that aspect, it's not going to be the living you. It's going to be this energy that was once you. That's what's going to experience it. So it's not your flesh. It's your soul. And I think when you're dealing with that, then you in the now have nothing to fear. Because they're threatening you with an existential contradiction to reality. But then you're saying, well, we're dealing with divine entities that can defy our understanding. God is beyond the understanding of man. Well, then, if it's beyond my understanding, again, why would I worry? I'm just this little ant. When I'm going to be responsible for something cataclysmic? No. There's bigger fish to fry. So, my walking away from religion was multifaceted. It was based on numerous elements. Because I couldn't just give up on it for one reason. And that's not because I'm romanticizing my faith. I couldn't walk away from my religion because my family and a lot of my close friends were. I was going to lose that community. So I molded over and I carried on with it longer than I wanted because I didn't want to lose that. But the longer I stayed on half-hearted, the more and more compounded reasons to let go occurred. So it got to a point where the cradle fell. I couldn't keep it going anymore. It sounds silly to me. It sounded cult-like. It sounded tyrannical. It sounded very fearful. That wanted you to not question anything. I'm a curious person, so that's poison to me. I'm too curious for religion. So I created a vacuum. And in that vacuum, well, something's got to take its place. And I'll admit, it was hedonism at the beginning. And in that hedonism, apathy was followed by nihilism. And I fell. I fell deep into my own darkness, into my own shadow. And I let my shadow drive for a long time, over a decade. And I hurt people. I did self-defense, proving a point, whatever you want to say, I was in a bad place and I had no excuse. I did what I did. But out of that, I had to find something like a life raft. I got counseling. Still doing it. And the other aspect, well, it started with self help, right? And trauma recovery videos. How to identify and recover from trauma, how to identify and recover from complex PTSD, or, you know, the things that I have to deal with. But then through that, some philosophy videos started slipping through. And that's what ended up filling that void, philosophy. But the beauty of it is that I already understood a lot of the Western philosophy through my survival instincts in the life that I had to live. There were very intricate pieces that I did not understand on my own, but the basics I learned through trial and error. This more sophisticated stuff I got to learn as I got into philosophy. But what really helped, what did more than Roman and Greek philosophers, or American or French or German or Russian philosophers, was getting into Taoism, however you want to say it, the yin and the yang, and a little bit of Hinduism, and a little bit of Buddhism, the art of letting go, the art of accepting, the art of understanding who and what you are. You are the universe, imagining that you are you. There's many elements to it. And they helped. They helped me understand who and what I am better than I did before. Do I know that? Still learning. Still learning who I am. Because when you get traumatized by something like religion and an abusive childhood for being different, there's a lot of things you gotta learn to unlearn. And Western philosophy kind of gets into letting go. But that's about it. Don't be defined by it. The past isn't the present. Let go. It doesn't get as deep into letting go as Buddhism and Hinduism and Taoism does, or Taoism. Like those are they lend heavy into those topics. And that ended up being what filled that void of religion. And it made me understand that religion is not something I should rile against and have an atheistic conflict with. At the beginning of my nihilism, that's what I wanted. The religious versus the non religious. Let's go. But I had to find the flip side of nihilism. And it had a lot of philosophy in a different form of nihilism. But I think a more healthy version is that the basic nihilism is that nothing matters, everything sucks, no one's ever going to win, and it'll never get better. That's that basic introductory level of nihilism, and it sucks, and it destroys people that slip into it. Not everybody, but some people can't handle that, and no judgment against them. That's heavy, especially when you once believed in an afterlife. That type of nihilism is soul crushing, kill your soul. So the philosophy was that important. So that's why I was able to effortlessly fill that void. So that's what turned that flip side of nihilism into something else. It made things that were beautiful that much more beautiful, because I knew how ugly everything is. It made meaninglessness, when you meet something of meaning, that much more meaningful, because there is no meaning. It's artificial. Reason, purpose, that's the same thing. So meaning, purpose, reason became that much more beautiful. It made reality that much more beautiful. It made the colors more vibrant for me. Knowing that there's no mistake in the general whole of it, but you are accountable for what you put into the universe. If you're a monster, you're going to get what a monster deserves. But if you're harmless and you prop up people that need a helping hand as you go through life and you smile and do your best, well, you're a beacon. People are going to appreciate that about you. And there's no moral ownership by anything. It's in you. It's your choice whether you want to do it or not. Some people, because of the elements of their life, identify with that, and it causes being nice becoming a rare event. That's on them. Everyone has had something done to them. Everything is your choice. Things that have been done to you isn't your choice. Whatever people do to you, and you can't stop it. There's no one else there to stop it. That's the tragedy of life. But how you roll with that is up to you. Are you going to be defined by it? Are you going to destroy the people around you that get too close because of it? It's all on you. Are you going to use anger to solve all your problems because of past pain? Again, that's all on you. And you quickly start to learn that you're not right for doing that. Someone hurt you doesn't mean the rest of the world needs your wrath. I had to learn that the hard way. So, how did I get Lucas? Well, Friedrich Nietzsche said, you look into the darkness, it looks back at you. I think that's what happened to me in my nihilism. Played in the dark too long. Made me a little sardonic. But when I look at it all, I don't feel like I lost anything. And what I feel, I didn't really gain anything either. Like in the whole of it. Because we're talking about things that you can't touch, they're not tactile. So, what changed? I think acceptance. Acceptance of what is really set me free because it made me feel good about every good choice I make. And it could be viewed like trying to nail the ocean to the beach in hopes that it doesn't go into low tide. Very futile. It can be viewed that way. All this good charity that you put out as much as you can in the best way you can seems futile. But it's not. In that movie Schindler's List, you have, what's his name there? Benjamin Kingsley says, if you save one life, you save the world. That's why it's not futile to be good. So if you are tired, just do what you think is best. And if you keep doing that, you'll have less blowouts, less drama. And it doesn't always have to be about you, but it doesn't always have to be about everyone else either. You can't be a slave and a servant to others. Just do your best and let everything else fall where it may. You'll grow thicker skin for the blowback, because it's only going to be from people that don't appreciate you, that don't value you, that are not loyal to you. Everyone else, they'll understand. Some might need some time, but if the love is real, they'll get back to you. So, what happened to me? Life happened. Life happened. And in my journey, I got here in my perception of reality and my path and how I interact with it. I will not subjugate myself to a political party. I will not subjugate myself to a religious order. I don't want to associate with any big group think. I want to enjoy the people beside me. I want to enjoy them. I want to see them succeed. I feel free. I feel like I'm on a good path, that if I am wrong, well, I may not have believed, but at least I'm not a bad guy. There's always that argument of I may not have believed, but I poured purity and light into the world that I lived. That's got to count for something. I'll close. I'll close with that. If that's satisfactory, give me a thumbs up. If it's not, leave a comment. Maybe I'll do another video. But I want to say thank you for the commenters. Thank you. This video is because of your comments. Thank you for interacting with me, and I hope to do another video soon. And above all else, thank you and appreciate you for dropping by. Have a good one.